Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi and you know what time it is, and we're gonna get our midweek magic on. This week's midweek magic event is none other than a phantom draft of Phyrexia All Will Be One. So hey, what could be better? We get to play limited for free and we get to win 2 rare or better ICRs. But before we get into all that, allow me to do the awkward thing and promote the channel. A while back, one of my viewers was kind enough to point out that we are the only channel putting out timely midweek magic content. So be sure to subscribe right here at the Planeswalker Stronghold for all of your future midweek magic needs, because we will be bringing you a deck list or strategy every single week. So what do you say we put all this aside and just get to that? All right, so the first very format specific piece of advice that I can give is when you look at the 2 color combinations and their performances, overall 2 color decks are winning about 56.4% of their matches, so just higher than the average of 55% on 17lands.com. The 2 color combinations that are punching above that are red-green and red-white. So definitely keep that in mind. If those colors are open, they appear to have some high synergies and some good cards. And secondly, keep in mind that the poison mechanic found within this set really is the defining factor, and everything else kind of plays second fiddle to it. So pay attention to any cards referencing poison, toxic, or corrupted. And for those that don't know, somehow a player that has 10 poison counters loses the game. End of story. All the other mechanics are really kind of second fiddle in this set, but you really want to pay attention to those 3 right there. All right, so first things first, all of these midweek magic limited events, whether they are draft or sealed, are always what we call phantom events. So that means once the event is over, you don't get to keep these cards other than the ones that you won specifically as prize support. Typically for midweek magic, that means 2 rare or better ICRs. Everything else just ceases to exist as far as your collection is concerned. So my usual advice regarding the long-term valuation of a card in your collection versus its short-term value in a draft or sealed event goes right out the window. Now, I happen to think that draft is the most skill-intensive limited environment that is offered on the Arena client, and the reason for that being the amount of choice that you have in card selection and your deck building steps. For those that aren't familiar, with something like sealed, you open packs and that's your card pool that you have to work with. There's really no choices involved. When it comes to something like jumping, you do get a little bit of choice in which pack you select in each of the 2 pack selection steps, but all your other deck building choices are basically made for you. When it comes to draft, you occupy a seat at an 8-man table. You open a pack, select a card, then pass the remainder of the cards to the person next to you, and you receive another pack less 1 card. That process continues throughout that pack until all the cards are gone, and then is repeated for 2 additional packs worth of cards, and that becomes your pool. You are literally building your deck pick by pick, choice by choice. For these midweek magic events and quick draft in general, those other 7 seats at the table are not occupied by World Championship pro level players. In fact, they're not occupied by people of any level. They are in fact being piloted by artificial intelligence engines with very predictable pick orders. And regardless of whether it's an issue with familiarity with a particular limited environment or maybe just a general skill issue, I highly recommend those that aren't entirely comfortable with their pick evaluation process to use an artificial intelligence engine. It will literally show you card by card, pick by pick, what a real pro thinks about a card, as well as what the AI is typically picking the card relative to the other ones in the pack. And in fact, you can kind of get good enough at reading this data over time to understand what will wheel to you in the second half of the pack from the ones that you have already seen. So whether you stand by Bread's bomb and removal based philosophy, or perhaps you've moved on to Keto's more efficient evasive creature base, it's fair to say that Limited tends to be about playing your very best cards. And more often than not, that means your bombs and your premium removal. Secondly, you need to make sure you have a reasonable curve to the cards that you're playing. You need enough things in your 1, 2, and 3 drop slots that means you won't get run over in the early game. Because if you don't do anything until turn 3, you're probably going to die on turn 4. On the other side of that coin, of course, you want to make sure you have enough things at your top end, your 4, 5, and 6, and beyond slots in some cases, that you have late threats that allow you to go over the top if the board state has stalled. One of the often overlooked factors of having a successful event is having the right balance between your creatures, your spells, and your lands. And traditional thinking is to have approximately 16 creatures, 7 spells, and 17 lands. And for most formats, that is going to be pretty right there. I don't recommend going outside of that unless you have a very good format-specific thing. One of the recent ones has been Khans of Tarkir, where going to 18 lands was often very relevant, thereby cutting a non-creature spell. And of course, Magic is always going to be a game of turns, which is defined by drawing cards. So our old friend card advantage is always going to be relevant. More often than not, playing a card that grants you some form of card advantage is going to be a very good thing. It's a good idea to save your removal for when your opponent drops those bombs. Sure, you can use your 2-drop removal to take out their 1 or 2 drop, but you're really going to hate that decision when they drop that late game 6/6 evasive creature. And of course, it really makes sense to know as much about the limited environment as you possibly can. But of course, early in the season like this, that can be problematic. What I do highly recommend is take a few minutes and know the combat tricks that are going to be relevant for that particular limited environment, because there's nothing worse than getting blown out in the red zone. Alright, so now let's talk about some easy ways to identify those combat tricks for any particular sealed format. And it doesn't matter which individual set that you select. One of the more popular ones recently has been The Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, so we're going to go with that. I also suggest that you just look at the commons and uncommons, because those are the ones that you're going to see most often in a limited environment. And of course, don't forget. And hey, just in case you didn't catch all that, Matt would like you to know that the deck list that we discussed in this video is going to have a link down in the doobly-doo to take you over to Aetherhub, along with a link to any other alternative lists that you might wish to consider. He only asks that you give it a little thumbs up when you're over there checking out the deck list. And I plan on live playing this event on Wednesday at 11 a.m. over on my Twitch channel, so definitely stop in and check it out. Because the Stronghold is so much more than just a YouTube channel, and you can find links to all of our other social media outlets in our profile. Because at the end of the day, we're all budget players. And as a community, we're stronger together. So like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all those things to show a little love. It's appreciated more than you know.